So they went about capturing the Africans and raping the country. They captured Africans, put them in bondage under what we call nowadays slavery. And they bought them. They brought them from Africa to the Americas, the North America and the South America. When they brought these people from Africa to the Americas, they wiped them clean. They wiped them clean. Their heritage, their tradition, everything was wiped clean, you see. And that African, especially the North American African, was given the true and living word. So you have to look at slavery in its proper perspective. True, slavery was a terrible thing that happened to us. It was horrendous, but there was a reason for it. How else would God have been able to get a remnant out of Africa and place them someplace where he could pour his word in its purity into them? And they wouldn't have any religious tradition to fall back on because it had all been wiped clean. Every other peoples of the earth have a tradition, a spiritual tradition, a religious tradition that they intermingle, that their heritage is based and predicated on. The African American, both North and South American, are unique. The African American is a whole unique race. Now, as I said, God used slavery to bring us here. Well, understanding that God always or oftentimes does use horrendous things to accomplish his purposes. God used the Holocaust to take the Israelites back to Israel, or to take the Jews back to Israel. The Jews were doing swell in Europe. There was no way that they were going to leave. Why should they? They were doing swell in Europe. It took something traumatic to get the Jews out of Europe and fulfill God's prophecy of them going back to Israel. The same thing with slavery. God brought a remnant out of Africa, and he poured his word in it. Now, the slave masters messed up. Their biggest mistake was they allowed us to worship. Our worship was a source of amusement to them. They mocked us. They ridiculed us. Even to this day, our worship is a source of amusement to them. But it was all we had, and it was what kept us sane, and it's what kept us going, and it was what delivered us. We were delivered from the South through various means. Harriet Tubman with the Underground Railroad was one, and that was facilitated through the church, encoded in our worship. Now, the slave masters, or white people, attempted to degrade us, tell us that we weren't human. We were only 3/5 human. They don't know it, but they were really onto something. We were 3/5 human. Well, what were the other 2/5? The other 2/5 were spirit. We walked with the Lord on a daily basis. When we were in the fields, we were singing hymns. When we went home cooking, we were singing hymns. When we were talking to each other, we were talking about and praising the Lord. We were talking and looking forward to that glorious day of deliverance. We held on to the Lord's mighty hand. That's what we had. That's what we had. And we were two-fifths spirit. We stayed in the presence of the Lord. They laughed at us. They ridiculed us. They made fun of us. That was all fine and good, but God gets the last laugh. So you see, through slavery, God was able to bring a remnant to the Americas. Now, why did God bring that remnant to the Americas? And then once that remnant got to America, why was that remnant abused and treated so terrible? That was done for this very reason. Because by us being treated so harshly, they gave us the ultimate weapon, and that is forgiveness. And that's what the story of the cross is. You see how it begins to fit together, my brothers and sisters? We carried the cross. And the truth of the cross, or the story of the cross, is forgiveness. Forgiveness. The last thing Jesus said on the cross, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And once that happened, the skies got dark, thunder, earthquakes, fearsome things happened. Well, my brothers and sisters, God wants to do something in the world now. God wants to do something in this earth now. But there's only one peoples that can allow God to do that. And that is the African American. The both South and North American African American. You see, the whole world knows what happened to us. The whole world knows the cruelties of slavery. The whole world knows the abuses of slavery. The whole world knows how we continue to be subjected to all of those terrible things. My brothers and sisters, there is no one on this earth that hold the key except for African Americans. And I got this from a Louisiana bishop about 4 or 5 years ago. And of course, after that, the Lord began to reveal things to me about it. You see, we can't get hung up on the physical. Our bodies were beaten and tortured and everything, but we had spirit. And we continue to have spirit. And even as time went on, God told the world again who we were. Even told us who we were. When we came up into the 20th century and into the 1960s, there was a moniker put on us black people. What was that moniker? Soul brother, soul sister. I bet God had a big laugh out of that. Saying they hear the name, but they don't know what it means. Now you know. Now you know. Because of the cruelties, because of what we as African Americans have been subjected to, we are the only peoples, only race on earth that can forgive and show the truth of the cross. And that was God's plan all along. We carried the cross to Calvary. Now God wants us to exhibit the truth of the cross. And the truth of the cross is forgiveness. Now I believe that what I am doing is what God wants me to do. I am only a messenger. I don't know how many of you are looking at this, how many of you will look at this. But I believe God wants to do something. But he wants us to first get out of the way. And the only way we can get out of the way, my brothers and sisters, is by forgiving.